Crazy to be back here, and awesome. I'd like to thank Lexi Kite and Andrew Swindle, as well as Natalie and Scott, the University of Utah College of Humanities, and School of Communication for having me here today. It's an honor and a pleasure to be back on campus. I attended the U of U from 1985 to 1989, and I consider this place a home. Whenever I say to people that I went to school in Utah, they say to me, "Wow, what was that like?" And I tell them, "It was awesome." And then I talk about fry sauce. What I actually say is, it's one of the most fascinating places I've ever lived, because when you have a strong culture at one end of the spectrum, you have an equally strong counterculture at the other. And that's, I met some of the wildest, craziest people I've ever met here in Utah. And I also met people who consider, oh my heck, a swear word. And it's like that combination is what makes this place so special. And it's just like a unique place, unlike any other. So when Lexi and Andrew, they first came and asked me to come speak, and I thought, oh my God, what would I say to a group of people who are probably only here for the light lunch? And I mean, like, what do you say to people who have their whole lives in front of them besides good luck with that? Or wear a condom? Or if you want kids, make sure you get around to it before you run out of eggs. And I thought, what I would want to talk about is the single most important thing I've learned on my life journey. It's the thing that has made the difference to my career, my personal life, and my happiness. And that thing is being authentic. If I had to give it a title, I would call it Be More You: How to Get Everything You Want by Being Exactly Who You Are. So, before I jump into exactly what that means, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. Because this is a talk about being who you are and how to become more of that. So, I'm from Minneapolis. Who's from Minneapolis? Oh, yay! I'm like repping Lake Harriet. Yeah. So I was born to an alcoholic prostitute mother. Are you like, woohoo? No. And a dad who was a drug dealer. And I ended up in foster care very early, around 3 months of age. And there was some back and forth where my dad tried to take care of me, but when I was 3, he got his first big prison sentence, and I went into the foster care system for the next 6 years. I bounced around to a lot of homes, but I ended up in the home of a Lutheran minister, his wife, and their 5 kids, and they pretty much saved my life. But when my dad got out of prison, he took me back, and I went to live with him and his girlfriend. And that situation had a lot of good and a fair amount of bad, but she made sure I went to great schools, which was a gift. When I was 17, I met a guy 10 years older than me who was getting an MBA, and long story short, when I was 19, I married him, mostly because I was exhausted. I ended up at the University of Utah the way a lot of people who aren't born here do, which is to say, almost totally by accident. My new husband had graduated and gone to work for an oil company. We were living in San Francisco, and he worked at one of those places out there on Beck Road at a refinery. And one day he came home and he said, we're being transferred to Salt Lake City. And I was like, Salt Lake City, okay. Never been here before, had no idea what to expect. And I'll never forget, it was my 21st birthday, driving east and seeing the Wasatch Front and the Capitol and the Temple and thinking to myself, wow, it was an adventure. And even though all my San Francisco friends were worried about what they considered to be a very disturbing turn of events in my life, it turned out to be great. I mean, for one thing, being 21 and married was suddenly not so weird. But the best thing about moving to Salt Lake City turned out to be right here, the University of Utah. I got a mass communications degree. I focused on broadcast journalism. I picked journalism because my new best friend, who was also 21 and married, by the way, said, you might as well get a degree where there's a job at the end of it. And that's how I picked broadcast journalism. And she turned out to be right. I did a couple of great internships. I had one at KUER. I had one at KSL, back when it was a CBS affiliate. And I graduated in 1989 with exactly 183 credits. which I still consider one of my great achievements, is that I had not one credit to spare. But with no idea what I really wanted to do with my life, I just moved to Portland and got my first job in TV news, in the NBC affiliate there. 3 years later, I quit that job. I went traveling in Central America and ended up in New York. I stayed there for three years. Then I quit that job, and I moved to Los Angeles. Now, I probably would have stayed there for 3 years and gone somewhere else, except I got pregnant, and so boom, I've been living in LA ever since. That'll be 20 years in April. I can't believe it. In all, I worked in TV news for 16 years, and it was a great, fun, dynamic career, and I was really well prepared for that career here at the U, which I had no idea that I was getting such a good preparation, but I was. Probably the best thing I learned from journalism is that I learned how to write, not because I'm inspired, but because there's a computer there and there's a deadline. So just write, And I think one of the things I heard early on was, don't get it right, get it written. You can always go back and rewrite later, but if it's not there on the page, there's nothing to rewrite, and it's really about just let somebody else decide if it's good. So over the years, I had toyed with screenwriting, but I didn't have much confidence, and frankly, I thought there was a conspiracy keeping people like me out of the business. I thought you had to be male in Ivy League, or female in Ivy League, or trans in Ivy League. I for sure thought you had to be white and young and from a certain kind of family. And what I didn't realize is that I was counting myself out even before I started. My big turning point came in 2005. I was 40 years old, a single mom of an 8-year-old boy, and going through my third divorce. I still had my TV news career, but just barely. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment and with no health insurance, and things looked really hopeless. I mean, it didn't look like any of the dreams were going to come true, put it like that. Just as an exercise in staying sane, I poured it all into a screenplay that I started writing just to sort of make sense of my life. When I finished it, I gave it to my one friend in the business, a woman I first met as a mom, but who had gone back to work, was a television writer, and had a pretty good career as a television writer. She told me, I'm way too busy to read your screenplay, but I'll send it to my agent, and if he likes it, he'll call you, and if he doesn't, he won't. So I knew that the protocol is you have to call and follow up on that, but I had really bad self-esteem issues. I thought, they don't want to be bothered with me. So I called a couple times, and it was just the whole agency Hollywood thing was just so monolithic in my mind. I couldn't see myself in there. I just couldn't see it. So I stopped calling. One day, 3 or 4 months after I first sent it to him, I woke up one day. I was by now I'm 41, and I just thought, Tracy, are you willing to have a bigger life? Are you willing to have a bigger career? And it was really clear at that moment that if I wanted something more out of my life, I was going to have to make an inside shift. It was not going to have to happen out there. It needed to happen in here. I had to be willing for it. So after a fairly long argument with myself, because I had a lot of important points to make about the conspiracy that was keeping me out of Hollywood, I finally said, yes, I am ready to have a bigger life right now. And until that moment, really, I'd always sort of pushed the idea of success or the next thing to tomorrow or next month or next year. And it was that day that I sort of went, how about now? Like that Drake song. Are you guys hip-hop fans? Okay, that's a hip-hop joke. So I called the agent that day. And later that day, around 5 o'clock, he called me back. It was a miracle. He's calling me back, and he said to me, I lost your screenplay. Can you send it again? So I went, oh my God, yes. And I went and I took a really quick rewrite, a real quick pass at it, and I sent it to him again, and then, of course, nothing happens. And right before Christmas, I had another talk with myself. And I said, forget what you think is possible. Forget what you think they are going to let you do. What do you want? I had to take the thing off of the world and put it onto me. What do you want, Tracy? What is your intention? And I'm like, well, because I have these conversations with myself. I said, what I want is to share life experiences and tell stories that maybe make the world a better place because they help people understand themselves and each other. What I wanted was for the agent to read my screenplay and take me on as a client. And so on January 2nd, the first business day of the new year, this is 2006, 8 months after I first sent the screenplay, the agent called me. And he said, I read your screenplay. It's good. Why don't you come meet with me? And that was the beginning. Now, it took a year to get a staff job. And in that year, I wrote like nobody's business. Like, I just gave myself assignments. I'm like, I'm going to write a sexy thriller. I'm going to write a 1-hour drama. I'm going to write a light comedy. I'm going to write this. And I just told myself what to do. And then I would just sit down, and it just started to happen. Yeah. So since then, I've written on a bunch of TV shows, including Mad Men and United States of Terra. I've published 2 books, and I have a third, a novel, my first novel, coming out in September. And like you guys, I'm not a novelist, but I don't let that stuff stop me anymore. I'm like, okay, novel, here we come, because it doesn't matter. You don't have to be limited by what you think you are, you know? I wrote the Huffington Post blog that went viral. It became one of Time's top 10 opinion pieces of 2011. Crazy. I became a relationship expert. I ended up on a reality show where I was a dating coach. I did an hour-long sit-down with Oprah Winfrey on Super Soul Sunday. Like, crazy shit, you guys. Like, this is not happening, you know? And I'm totally not even done. That's the other thing. Like, I feel like I'm just, like, in the middle part of my story, of my, like, arc. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, my wildest dreams came true. And I did it not by being white, young, male, or Ivy League. I did it by being exactly who I am. And in fact, it wasn't until I embraced myself exactly who I am that it happened. Which brings me back to you guys and being more you, and the idea of being more you. And now, I know when somebody gives me like a big idea like that, I'm like, well, that sounds awesome. I want to be more me, but like, how? How do you do that? Do you like do the hokey pokey or click your heels together 3 times, you know? And the answer is no. What you do is you're sort of like building a ship at sea. It's like this intangible thing because everybody's like an individual and a snowflake. So the way you're going to do it is going to be different than the way I did it. It's going to be different the way the next person did it. But there are these certain principles that if you follow them are going to bring you more authenticity and more, align you more with less of the fear and more of the infinite potential, you know? So being more you is a skill. It's like something that takes practice. So here's my 5 principles of being more you. Getting real, forgiving everybody, getting over yourself, loving yourself, and being the train. What I call being the train. So let's jump right into getting real. So getting real is about being authentic. Like, I know everybody in here already thinks they're authentic. Like if someone with a clipboard outside Trader Joe's was to ask you, are you authentic? Are you real? You'd be like, oh, I'm so real. But if you want to be more real, it's like you have to go deeper than that. You have to have a reel off with yourself, right? There's a constant process of going more real because that's hard work. It's hard work to be real. So how do you know if you're as real as you can possibly be? And I'm like, one of the main signs is some people don't like you. If you never make people mad and you never have a difference of opinion with anyone, chances are you are not being real enough. Here, I mean, I can tell you from my Huffington Post thing, if you look in the comment section of anybody, especially a woman who's doing anything in the world, she's going to be getting a lot of disapproval, you know, like mostly about my hair. Right? It's like, or like, she has a lot of nerve to have hair that big. It's like, if you are going, people are going to be, there's a saying, when you stop people pleasing, people stop being pleased. And if you're going to author anything, and I don't mean even just limited to the idea of writing, but if you're going to author anything in business, in the world, if you're going to say, this is it, and stand behind what it is that you're doing, some people are going to try to get you to go, no, be nice, especially if you're a woman. So I know it seems like it's safer and you'll have more friends and get more jobs and more people will like you if you're agreeable all the time. But the truth is that it's hard to connect with and trust people who aren't authentic. Like if you've ever had that experience, like you're at a party or somewhere and you're trying to talk to somebody and like the conversation just doesn't flow, there's like nothing there, it's because someone isn't being authentic. Because when you're like speaking from like your deepest truth, you kind of dispense with the thing about the weather and you get into something that matters, you know? And you have to be willing to be that vulnerable, even with people you just met, to be like, this is who I am. And it's okay, you know? So I'm not saying you have to run around being difficult. You just stop hiding who you are and what you really believe. You just become willing to dare to show who you are to people. The other big sign that you're not being real enough is internal. You find yourself pretending a lot. Like, you pretend to know things you don't. You pretend to be more perfect than you are. And the big scary one is you pretend to be happy in your relationships. It takes a lot of courage to live an authentic life. To say to a group of people that you don't know anything about abstract expressionism and like what's the deal anyway, you know? Or to admit that you let your kids play too many video games and you're kind of okay with it. Or to say to your partner, I feel like we're not connecting deeply enough and I'm afraid of what that means. But when you find the courage to be more authentic, like a couple of really key things happen in your life. First, you become free. Because it takes a lot of energy to maintain that facade all the time. And when you dare to be the whole real you, there's nothing to keep track of anymore. You don't have to be in control. And that sets you free. And being free is awesome. It releases all the deepest, most creative energy in you for whatever it is you're trying to do in the world. And that's energy that you can use to like write a book or start a movement or, you know, bake cookies for your next door neighbor. It's just like, it just frees you up. And people can feel that. The other thing that happens is your life begins to align around your deepest truth, right? This is partly because all the people who can't or don't want to deal with the most authentic you stop calling you as much, which can be sad too, because some of these people are going to be friends and family. But what I've found is that is temporary. You know, there's an adjustment when you start to commit to like a deeper truth rather than like people pleasing. An adjustment happens where people at first are like, whoa, you know, they like the old you, or they like the you, they like your avatar, you know. But what you find is that you're giving them an opportunity to love you for who you really are instead of the you that they want you to be, you know. It's like you get this one life. You can't live it for other people. So in the area of work, what it means is that only the employers who are cool with you the way you really are going to hire you. And that's a huge relief. It means you're not going to end up like me. I remember I worked at a bank once. I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't belong in a bank. It's like never going to work. But I could behave as though, for the interview or the process, as though I could work in a bank. And then I would end up a lot of places that I didn't belong by not being authentically me. It's the same thing in dating. Like being yourself means that the people who aren't really down with your real self are not going to call you back. And that's a good thing, because if anything sucks worse than not being called back at all, it's only showing a certain side of yourself to get into a relationship and then finding out that your new partner doesn't really like you, you know? Life is too short for that. So that brings me to the next principle, which is forgiving everybody. So when I say forgive everybody, I mean everybody, even the stupid people and the assholes. Because the truth is that everyone is doing the best they can, even if their best sucks. You might be wondering why forgiving people who suck will help you live the life you want. And the reason is because you're going to encounter a lot of these people as you go through life. There are a lot, things are going to happen, you know. People are going to make mistakes, cut you off in traffic, steal your man. Shit's going to happen. You don't know which shit, but like I promise you, stuff is going to happen. And you're going to have to forgive people. Or you're going to tie up all this energy in these sort of like grudges, and it makes it hard to trust and be open with other people. And if you want to be more you have to trust and be open. That's just like, you just can't fear other people in that way. So forgiveness is another thing that is easier said than done. So I'm going to give you a shortcut. So the shortcut to forgiveness is that you have to rewrite your stories. So every time you're mad at someone or have a problem with someone, there is a story under there that you're telling yourself. The story usually goes something like this. This is bullshit and I'm a victim. Some version of that, you fill in your own details. But what you don't realize is that the stories that you tell about yourself become true. Because the story shapes your thinking, the thinking shapes your perceptions, the perception shapes your choices, the choices shape your actions, and your actions are your destiny. So if you want to be more you, it's imperative that you learn to shape your stories in ways that empower you, not piss you off or turn you into a victim. So take, for example, my life story. There's one version which is, I got born, my mom threw me away, my dad was a drug dealer, and no one loved me. Wah, wah, wah. And then there's the other version, which is, I got born, I took a look around at these people, and I said, I can do better than this. And I got out of there, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So it's like you can take the same set of facts and interpret them in a way that empowers you or not. That is your choice. Like when we talk about free will, what is free will? Well, it's not to stop things from happening. It's to interpret them in ways that work as opposed to not work. So part of this is a commitment to the idea that everything is working for my good. Like even the bad things that happened to me actually had a good part. It's up to me to focus on that good part. So that brings me to the next thing, which is getting over yourself. So it's a paradox that in order to be more you, you have to get over you. And what I mean by that is that you have to tame your ego. And I don't mean ego in a Psych 101 way. I mean it in a almost like a Buddhist way. Like your ego is the part of you that masquerades as you. But really, it's me. So I'm going to say that again. The ego is the part of you that is passing itself off as you, but is really me. Like, me, like that. Like when you hear yourself going, me, that's your ego. And I don't care what it's talking about to you, because the ego is going to be all about the outsides. It's going to be that's not prestigious enough, or that's not good enough, or I didn't have that in mind. It's going to be don't you want to run that by me first? So when you hear that sassy tone that's really don't you want to know what me thinks about that? You know you're dealing with your ego. And if you do what it says, you will be getting into a box. It's the opposite and the enemy of authenticity. So now I have a confession to make, which is, I know I said this talk was going to be called How to Get Everything You Want, but that was a trick. Because the truth is you will never get what you want. It's just, let me change that. You will never get enough of what you want. Because that's the thing about desire and wanting. There is never going to be enough for your ego. So as soon as you get what you want, I live and work in Hollywood, and I know a lot of really successful people, and I've seen it happen. I have a friend who has an Oscar. You know what she wants? Another Oscar. It's like no one is done winning Oscars or having things, getting their ego satisfied. No one's done making money. You would think people would be you have enough. It's no, because when the ego's in charge, it's just voracious. So if you live from that place, you will never be happy and you will never be more you. It has to be that you're looking for what you need, which is different than what you want. What you need is more subtle. It's going to cause you to grow, basically. And the way to tell what you need is that what you need is always on top of the pile, right? Sometimes things are happening in life and you're this, you're what am I really supposed to be doing with my life? And then you're digging through a pile of laundry and you're it must be in here somewhere. And it's no, it's actually right on top of the pile. Even if it looks like a difficult situation or something that's uncomfortable, it's the problem always has a solution tucked right into it. So whatever situations are going on in your life right now that seem to be like difficulties, or those are the situations that if you work your way through them, you will develop what it is for the next leg of your journey, whatever that is. Because we never know where our journey is going to take us. But I can see clearly in retrospect, like I just turned 50 this last year, and it's like really interesting to be 50 because it's like you're standing there and you can really see what came before. Like 30 years ago, I walked onto this college campus having no idea what my life, that I was going to be back here telling you guys some stuff about being more me, you know what I mean? So I feel like you don't know what's going to happen. You have to trust that whatever's in front of you is going to give you the practice that you need, whatever it is, you know? Because like life is these paths, and sometimes you're brought down a certain path, not because that's your path, like Utah for me. I was married to that guy. Well, that guy wasn't my path. But the University of Utah, he got me here, and that was my path. So sometimes there's like a fork down the road on a path that is where you're supposed to be. And that's why you're having a particular problem right now. I hope that made sense. So that's now that brings us to number 4, which is loving yourself. This is huge. Each one of these is like building on itself. So in order to expand as big as you can be, you have to learn to love yourself. Because being more you is really challenging. Not just because it's hard to be authentic, but why is it hard? It's hard because most of the time there are parts of you that you don't really want to be, you know? There are aspects that you want to disown or hide, or that you feel like people are going to judge you for. Like everybody's cool with like the great parts of themselves, like, wow, I'm really nice, or I was homecoming queen, or I'm like have a great work ethic. But if you really want to practice being more you have to come to terms with the parts that you don't necessarily love about yourself. Like you're envious, or you're insecure, or you watch too much reality TV. Loving yourself is about sprinkling acceptance, love, sprinkles. You're putting sprinkles, like pinkberry. You're putting sprinkles on the parts of yourselves that you are tempted to hide or walk away from. You know, you're afraid like people are going to judge you, and the truth is, yeah, people are going to judge you. People judge. That's just what they do. But the reason it's important to love yourself is because you are going to find that the places where you're the most wounded and where you have the most trouble loving yourself are going to be the places where you have the most to give. Like I learned this with my Huffington Post piece. You know, I don't know if you guys have read it, but whatever. I say a lot of provocative things that are based on my own experience of being married 3 times. And when I first was going to publish it, I kind of knew deep down, like, excuse my French, sorry. If I put this out in the world, I can never get it back. And I didn't know it was going to go crazy. I had no idea about that, but I was taking a walk with my friend, the one who got me my agent. Her name is Jill Soloway, and she just actually won the Golden Globe for Best Comedy. She does Transparent. She's like a mentor and a close friend. And I said to her, Jill, we're on a walk, we're hiking, and I'm like, I'm afraid to put it out there. People are going to judge me. And she said, you have to, Tracy. And I said, why? And she said, because you're going to help people. And sometimes you just have to sacrifice your own idea about you so that you can help other people, you know? So, it changed my life, you know? That piece changed my life, and it changed my career, and it showed me that you can show the world your most shameful place. And in doing that, you essentially show people this is how you love yourself. You just stand next to you, even when the comment section is blowing up. You know what I mean? You just stand next to you like, I'm here with you, Tracy. I'm just going to stand next to you. It's okay. I'm not going to be like, wow, really? And then leave, you know, on myself. So all these parts of being more you are building on themselves, right? So you get real, you forgive people, you get your ego out of the way, you love and accept yourself for who you are despite your mistakes. And suddenly you are finding yourself being useful in the world in a way that you never really imagined, because you couldn't imagine it. And that brings me to the last point, which is, it's about getting the life you want, the life you need. And it's about service. I call it being the train. So I always say that if I was going to write a Hollywood memoir, I would call it Hobos in Search of a Train. Because in some ways, everyone comes to Hollywood, and of course life, with a dream, They want to win an award, or act in a show, or be an executive, or run a studio, whatever it is. It's kind of like, I see them as like hobos, and they have the stick with the bandana on the end, and they're looking around like, who can I use? What train can I jump on to get where I want to go? So I figured this out early in my career. I had just gotten my first agent, who was a television agent. And they were like, we're going to assign you to a feature agent. And I was like, great, maybe I can write some feature films. And they gave me this girl who was like barely not an assistant. Like, she had just become a real agent. And I was like, what? I didn't want her. I wanted like the big superstar agent, so-and-so, who had all the superstar clients and was like the baller. Because I was a hobo and he was the train, And I don't know how it hit me, but one day it hit me. I thought, oh my God, what if I decided to become the client that I wish that young agent already had? Like, I'll be that client for her. In other words, what if I decided to be the train? This changed everything for me. It's like my whole approach to my career from that point on. Like, I would take meetings, and instead of walking in there wanting something, I'd be like, my goal is to be like, okay, what are you doing? And how can I help you make that happen? Because everyone has like some dream or a goal that they're trying to do. And it was like, my meetings became, my agent would be like, I don't know what you say to these people. What do you say to these people? And I'm like, you know what? I don't even say anything. I just try to make a friend, make a connection, find out what their goals are, and see if I can help them in some way, Maybe it's not that explicit, but that's the basic tone. Because all day long, if you're in a competitive business, all day long, the people that you come into contact with are dealing with a lot of people who are takers, essentially, and very few people who are there to give anything. And it's like, when you walk in as a giver, oh my God, it's like the doors open. Yeah. So my goal now is to think about ways I might help others, And if you think this is going to change your work life, wait till you see how it changes your love life. Because all of a sudden you're just on a date to be you and make a friend. That's it. You're not trying to take a relationship from someone or get sex or a baby or a picket fence. Your goal is to connect authentically, so that only if the person resonates with your deepest self do you pursue a relationship. And I want to say, think of all the bad sex you're going to avoid by following this idea. Like, you're never going to end up with the wrong person. It doesn't mean you're going to marry every person that you date. It means that when you do move forward in a relationship, it's consciously. Because you're operating from a whole other place. It's not all coming from here, You're operating from here, from your heart. So, that's it. Those are my 5 principles. And I could say a lot more about this, and I'll probably write a book about it. But this is what I want to say in closing. I want to encourage every one of you to commit to yourselves and to be more you, Like, the world needs you. This is why we do it. It's like, you're the only you. Everyone has like a unique set of talents and gifts and capabilities. In business they call it branding. But what it really is that you have something to give to the world around you. And it could be just like the person in line at Target. But you have something to give that no one else has to give. Your job is to figure out what that is, develop it, and be of service to the world with it. And that's it, And what it does is that you become a light. It's about lighting up your little corner of the universe. Because when you're a light, people see it. Like, they want to be around you. And they want to hire you, and they want to marry you, and they want you to be their mom and dad. And what more is there to want in life but that? No, I have a joke here. I mean, except fry sauce. So that's it. Thank you. So I love Q&A. So
excellent. Let's take 10 minutes and do a Q&A. You can also ask your questions to Tracy afterward.
Yeah.
And then we'll come out here and we're selling books and we'll do a book signing at a table and there will be food. So let's go for questions and I'll pass this around.
And I encourage you to ask questions like publicly because you'll help other people.
Perfect. Questions?
Somebody just has to go first. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Okay, so my question is this. So I have read one of your books and I loved it. And my question is, I'm sure there's people who've been in similar situations with you, grew up in foster care and things like that. Like, what do you think made you different? Like, why did you end up, like, where you are right now? Like, there's so many other kids who don't make it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying, right? And so, like, what was different?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, there's that one TED Talk, or somebody has this whole theory about grit. It's like the people who have grit and are like persistent. I think a lot of it's temperament. You know, temperament's inborn. So I do think that there's something in me where I could look on the bright side, but that's too like. What is the word? It's like a platitude. I actually think what it is that I've worked really, really hard. Like, you can have the temperament. It's like you can have the talent, let's just call it for 1 second, a talent for like doing life or whatever, but you have to develop it. And I think what I was willing to do is I worked harder than other people, maybe. I had a couple of excellent breaks, like that foster family, huge, huge break. But ultimately, and this is how I parent too, because my son's almost 18, everyone's life is going to come down to them. It's like, what are you going to choose for your life? It doesn't matter. All that bad shit happened. Okay. What am I going to choose? And I just made choices that were like, because I've been in therapy like forever. I've had to let go of a lot of like attachments. I've had to let go of like, a lot of things people would use to make themselves feel better while they walk through like childhood pain or whatever. I've dealt with my trauma head on, and I just admit where I am. I haven't figured it all out. Ask my boyfriend. So it's like it's a work in progress always, and I think that's part of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I just have more of a comment. You remind me of that Marianne Williamson quote that. Because you make me feel so much more freer. The way you are, you're allowing me to be much more free, especially coming back to Utah and knowing how conservative it is here and knowing your audience. You have to speak to your audience. It's like 101, know your audience, and you're just like saying all these cuss words and being yourself and being comfortable, not like,
right.
Politically correct.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you. I feel so full right now just being in your presence, and I feel like I can just walk out of here and just be even much more of myself and who I am, because I'm not of this persuasion. I just feel like sometimes I have to be, like you said, you have to be perfect, and I pretend to be that perfect person, especially being a black woman, and I have to be proper, and I have to prove myself that much more in this society and in the society at large. So oh my gosh, am I tearing? But I just want to thank you for that. For being who you are and
Thanks.
Coming here.
It's funny, before we had a little joke where we were like, the name of the talk isn't Be More Them. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like you got to come in wherever you are and just be like more you, whatever that is. And it does free up other people. Other people will appreciate it. Who else? Come on, you guys.
Well,
come on.
I do have to, sorry, I think I can project loud enough.
Okay.
Thank you, as has been commented. I am going to cry. You and I shared the same year, 64. So here's the big thing. I have a child. He's an adult. He's gone through amazing and difficult things. And He's stronger for it, just like I am. However, what I'm finding for myself is that not getting to that next step. A lot of things that you talked about, I'm like, I've already done that. I've already done that. I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. Ooh, I need to work on that. I need to work on that. And you brought a lot of things to light. And my question is, when you find what that genuine you is, but it's not putting you in a position where independence gained again, something you've had before, you know that what that feels like, you know how it can also help others, but how do you make it possible to help them when you're showing that you still haven't been able to help yourself enough?
I get it. Well, I mean, yes. I'm not sure because you're speaking in a general way, so I'm just gonna free associate.
Sure.
I feel like for many years I was living above a dog groomer in a 1-bedroom apartment as a single mother with no apparent success. You know what I mean? I got my agent at like 42, 41. I got my first TV writing job at 42. I appeared to be a failure. You know what I mean? It really did look like that. But my job at that point, I worked part-time in TV news. Part of my thing is that I take a lot of calls from girls. Part of how this all occurred for me is that it just was an outgrowth of what I was already doing. Like, I had a lot of people in my life who were like, you should call Tracy. She could help you. And then I would just chat with people about whatever was going on in their lives. And there was one day that I was above the dog groomer, my little house in Glendale. I mean, it was, I don't know, next to the freeway. I mean, it was not sexy or glamorous. And I remember standing there going, and I hung up the phone after having that moment that moment where you make that real connection with another person, you know, where you're being of service, and it's not about like, oh, look at me, I got this thing, or whatever. It was just that moment of one person communicating with another human being on the planet. And I thought, if I never move from this house, if I never get a second bedroom, I will be fine. Well,
but I mean, that's the thing.
And I get it, because there's some way then, somehow I have to go, okay, universe, you show me what it is that I can release of my gifts right here. Because maybe there's like a lot of homeless people around who could take from your experience, strength, and hope. Right? Because even if you have no home, your consciousness, and this is huge, right? Now we're getting into some really spiritual stuff, which is, there were a lot of times where I had to see all around me, it looked like, oh my God, I've become my mother. Like that lady who raised me, I'm her. And then I had to hold, like, because this is what it means to be human. We can ideate past current circumstances. So it's like, these are my circumstances. It looks like I'm fucked. Right? It looks like that. But you have to go, okay, I know the truth, which is, it can all happen. So it's like, I can either act on what it looks like, appearances, or I can act on what I know to be true, which is infinite possibility. And then I take the actions based on what I want out of life, not out of what appears to be the truth. And that has to do with racism, sexism, every ism that you can imagine, everything that has to do with current circumstances. Someone, Martin Luther King Jr., or somebody, stood in the face of current circumstances and said, it could be another way. And that's what you have to do in your own life. It could be another way. In fact, I'm going to start behaving right now. Thank you for it being another way. It already is another way. It already is. Yes. Thank you. And I'm willing to embrace even more. Like it's like hardcore, like in yoga, you're doing plank. It's like hardcore spiritual work to not be all up in current circumstances and appearances. Because I would never, I mean, in answering to your question down here in the front is like, how do you get out of what it is by knowing it could be another way? And behaving as that person right now. How would she behave? Sometimes I will even try on, like I have a couple of friends who had like really good families and have had every advantage in life, and I have this one friend, Dana, and she's amazing. And she just expects everything's going to be good. Her whole, like, sometimes I'll be like, I will literally adopt Dana's posture. Here's Dana. Oh, where's the next wonderful thing? And I'll be like, holy shit, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, what would Dana do right now? She'd be like this, oh, where's the next wonderful thing? And I'm like, I need to be in that energy because the world matches my energy. And if I want to know what I think, most deeply, look at what's around me. Oh, I think this most deeply, okay, I'm willing to have a new experience. And that is hard work. I'm going to hold a space for you. And we all will, for each other. Anybody else?
One more question.
So, in many people's life situations, it's obvious that we come across expected and unexpected situations. And your mind is not prepped really, or even not trained really to even expect what you are expecting, or expect what is being unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
So, how in such situations one has to prep their mind,
Right.
knowing that these are the variabilities that you are going to face
Yes.
in every time and space.
Yes.
Because you don't know what's going on around you. You
Right.
don't know what is going on with you, and how do you have to react to what is going on around you. So, how...
Well, that's the ego part. Like, the ego thinks that it's going to get out in front of some stuff, or that it's going to know how to react, or it should know how to react. But really, like in real life, you're just taking another breath. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of don't worry that much about, like, the variables that much. Like, maybe I'll be like, well, this could happen, that could happen, the other thing can happen, but we don't know which one's going to happen, or something I haven't even thought about yet. I always include the something I haven't even thought about yet.
But one of the problems is with the pattern of the way how you think. Like, say, for example, if you have
The pattern. Yes.
5 failures,
Yes.
the brain is very easy to go into a state where it says,
Yes.
even though it's seeing success, it will say, oh, now I'm going to fail, because there is a past experience.
Yes.
So now how do you
yes.
your brain so that, whatever damn thing that's going to happen in the
Yeah. I know, because those patterns are really intense, and it really kind of goes what we were just talking about. It's like, yes, all that has happened up till now, but I mean, I'm not a scientist at all, but I do know that there is like, let's just imagine that this is the way I imagine it. There's a field of infinite possibility at all times, and there's like concurrently, there's the way it's always been. And those two things, it's like a dream. I was in Boston, but it was San Francisco. You know what I mean? Or I was at your house, but it was my house. It's like those two things are happening at the same time. So what activates which one I'm going to be in? This is my idea. This is just take what you like and leave the rest. What activates which one I'm going to be in is my choice. Am I choosing infinite possibility, or am I choosing it's always been this way, so it's going to keep being this way? I get to choose. Now, what most people think is it's happening to me. That's what I mean about the stories. It's happening. See? It's happening. Because you will conjure up circumstances that look just like yesterday's circumstances or last month's circumstances, in relationships and jobs and whatever. People have areas where they do the same thing over and over, these patterns you're talking about. So it's like both these things are happening, and then this is what I mean by whatever it is, it's me. Like the whole thing that made people so mad about why you're not married is I'm saying, look, it's not him, it's you. And people are like, are you blaming? And it's like, no, I'm saying you have choices, and your choices are way bigger and more powerful than any set of circumstances of like how many assholes are out there. You know what I mean? Like, sure. Or how few people get married today. Well, okay. But I'm willing to be the one who does, if that's what I want. I'm not a marriage hegemonist, okay? I don't care if people get married. But if you want to, and a lot of people do, it's like, what are you going to choose? So I feel like that's what it comes down to, But most people don't empower themselves in that way, and there's no message of that because, how would capitalism work if I didn't think I needed to buy that cell phone in order to be cool? You know what I'm saying? But so you have to kind of step out of that and go, okay, and apply some like critical thinking or whatever. So, well, that's so deep, you guys. I know. Does